Welcome back, SmythOS agent engineers. In our last video, we explored API calls and error handling. Now we are taking it up to another level by introducing a powerful tool that will revolutionize your API testing process, Postman. Let's dive in with Mike as he shows us how Postman and SmythOS work together to streamline your API workflow.
So we've got the demo, it's working, but let's say that we have this API call. It's working for us now because we understood what to put into each of these parts of the body, right?
Mike is setting the stage for why we might need a tool like Postman. Even when our API calls are working, there's always room for more efficient testing and development.
So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to transition over to Postman, where we have this call, and it is, in this case, a post method. So we're going to post this, in other words, we're going to post to upload text content.
Now, Mike's introducing us to Postman, showing how it can be used to test different types of API calls, including post requests.
This is a very, very simple endpoint that was created specifically for this purpose. We didn't need to create any specific authorization for this to happen. So this is just a very, very simple piece that we've got running. This is not, if you remember before, with the GET, we had the query parameters were on the end, and this one, what we're doing is we're using a post, which is where we're using the body of the request, right? So we have the parameters, which are those things that go on the, if we were to have parameters here, it would start with a question mark and then go with, for example, username, and then it has a value of Mike. Right? Those are typically used with GET and not with POST. And then you have authorization. The most common authorization that you'll see in a lot of cases is what's called the bearer token, which is like an API key where it starts with the word bearer. And that's not the full API key and not a correct API key for this, but still don't want to expose that. But the gist of it is this in Postman that ultimately ends up as a header, but Postman makes it easy by giving you the authorization piece in there. You could also do it here as a key where you would say bearer, and then I'm sorry, what you would do is you would say authorization, and then the value would be bearer and then your API key. This is obviously not an API key. This is a duplicate header because it's being taken from the authorization. But we are going to go ahead and delete this and delete this, which is going to get us back to where we need to go to make this work. So is everybody following along? Can I get some thumbs up on understanding what I'm doing here inside of Postman? I'm making an API call. That API call is equivalent to an API call inside of Smyth, but it's done outside of Smyth and in a tool that, if you recall, where we can import, for example, all of these API calls in all of their formats for all of these things directly from vendors like Atlassian, right? We can import by doing an export here. That gives us a file. By the way, I have an account, but I'm not logged in here because it will change what you see. But basically, you export these what they call collections. Those collections will then show up in your Postman. Is right here.
Mike's explained the difference between GET and POST requests in Postman. This understanding is crucial for working with different API endpoints.
I can also import a curl call, which is basically you'll see this a lot in API documentation. If you want to pull your API curl call into Postman and test it from there, this is a really easy way to do that.
Mike's highlighting a powerful feature of Postman, the ability to import CURL commands. This can save a lot of time when working with API documentation.
I'm going to go ahead and send this. I send this and I can see here's what I get back, right? Here's what I sent it. And here's the file name, which is training, blah, 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 blah. And there's the URL to that file. I can copy that, or I can actually go and pull that. There's the actual call to that. I can also pull that into a I'm going to save that. I could pull that into a web browser and see that that's there. I've already shown you guys that so far, but this is the response that I get back for this API call. So number one, we get that success, which is that error code 200. That's the most important thing we want to see back from our API calls. But let's say, okay, I've got it working inside of Postman. What do I need to do next? So the next thing you want to do is go ahead to the collection. You'll find that this will not work for the individual call, but it will work for a collection. So I'm going to go ahead and save this collection by exporting it. Okay. And there's my Postman collection going into my downloads. Now I'm going to go into my downloads. There's my Postman collection. Now I'm going to go into my agent here. And forgive me for a little bit of a woo-woo here. All I need to do is drop my Postman collection inside of here. Smith detects that this is a Postman collection and will drop these this call into here.
Watch as Mike sends the request and interprets the response. This process of sending requests and analyzing responses is at the heart of API testing.
So does everybody think this is ready to rumble? It's not ready to rumble. We need to actually do a little bit of work here, right? Not much, but a little bit. Remember that what we want, if you go back and take a look, we don't want this text content. We want to be able to add that as a variable or parameter from the text content and the API endpoint. So what we're going to need to do first is turn off debug and go ahead and add an input. We're just going to call it text content. And then what we are going to do is go ahead and pull. We showed you this yesterday, where we're going to pull a specific piece of the body in that call into text content. And just in case you were kind of like, I don't remember this, go back, take a look at the homework from yesterday, where we went ahead and pulled out the body issue, as well as something very, very deep within there when we pulled out the body issue fields description content array. So that allowed us to get to a very, very particular piece. All of that was part of the overall body, right? So just going back to the homework from yesterday. Again, this Smith file is available over on Discord in the courses collaboration channel. Okay. Let's go back to our piece here. Remember, this has been imported from Postman. Let's go ahead and see if we got what we wanted here, or if we need to do something more. So, by the way, hint, we do. And if anybody can figure it out before I finish this failed debug run, go ahead and put it in the notes there, right? So okay. All right. So I should be able to run this, right? Hey, it worked. But did it? Let's take a look at the response.
Mike's showing us that API testing is an iterative process. Even when things seem to work, there's often room for improvement or additional testing.
So what was the text content that I started with? This is the content that I want to be able to store in a file that I can share with others via URL. All right, let's go ahead and take a look. We got a file name. We got that file. All right. Yeah, it looks good, right? Can anybody tell me what's wrong? Only way to check it. Let's go ahead, copy that URL. Wait a minute. That's not what I put into my thing. Can anybody tell me now what we're missing? Come on. So what we are missing in here is in our body. I have static text, but what I want to do is replace that static text with this text content, right? I know it seems silly, but oftentimes we can forget, and I'm guilty number one on this, that we need to replace the static content that came from our Postman calls, as well as the variables that come from Postman calls, because Postman actually does have the capability of using variables somewhat like Smyth, and they don't necessarily match up with the variables that you have access to inside of Smyth. So you got to match those up and change them and get them to work accordingly.
Here, Mike's demonstrating how to test different parameters in your API calls using Postman. This kind of experimentation is crucial for understanding and optimizing your APIs. Incredible walkthrough, Mike. We've seen how Postman can supercharge our API testing process. From setting up requests and handling different HTTP methods to importing CURL commands and iterative testing. Postman is a versatile tool that works hand in hand with SmythOS. Remember, SmythOS innovators. Mastering Postman alongside SmythOS gives you a powerful combination for API development and testing. In our next video, we explore how to create and deploy agents in SmythOS. Until then, keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible with APIs.